Today's episode is brought to you by Elitefts.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elitefts support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of Elitefts for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elitefts has it. Now, onto the show.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elitefts weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk.
One of the best ones yet.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Table Talk number something.
70. Yeah, it could be 80. Jacob, I think we're close to 80.
I think we are.
Beautiful.
Yes. So 80. So 20 more to go until you're old.
Actually, side note, this is kind of a little piece of background information here. We just crossed 800,000 downloads on the podcast, which is kind of cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, literally just like yesterday. Mm-hmm. Just 800,000.
So I wonder if you add that to the podcast that was before this, right? Because there's been 3 iterations. For
right.
No, the first one kind of really sucked, so I don't count. Actually, the first one, if you really want to go back, was on the old site, and I would just record it. I had a spy phone recorder. You had to use a real phone that had like a cord and shit.
Right.
I don't know, a rotary phone.
Yeah.
And a little microphone.
A bag phone.
Yeah, you actually stuck a suction cup thing on the back of I swear to God, on the back of the microphone. Then I talked to people like Buddy Morris and I record it.
Holy shit.
And then I would upload it to the site. So that was the first.
When was that? I don't even remember that.
That's way back. That's way back. Probably 15 years ago. It was before podcasts were even podcasts.
Right.
It's like, wow,
like
this would be an easy interview to do until shortly thereafter we realized, holy fuck, our site can't handle the bandwidth.
Right.
Because when that audio would start playing, and this is what I didn't know, is say it's an hour-long interview. If somebody only listened to 5 minutes, it was still playing on the server for the hour.
Oh,
so
shit.
Now you get 15, 20, 30, 40, 100 people listening to it. It's like, oh shit, why is our store crashing right now? It's anyhow. So that didn't last very long. And then Mark Watts did the Sports Performance podcast, mm-hmm. which a lot of people might not know. Actually, before that, there was the Iron Subculture podcast, and there was only maybe 3 of those.
Yep.
There wasn't many because we were doing in-house everything of the thing. So it was taking like a year just to edit one. Oh, and that's not like an exaggeration.
I believe it.
Like 2 months or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Then Mark started, because at that point I'm like, this can't be that hard. I used to do this with a suction cup.
Right.
So then Mark kind of took it over, and there's a lot of episodes of that, which people probably don't know.
Now, did that start when you moved to this building?
Mm-mm.
That was in the other one?
The other building. And there's a lot of them. You know, I don't want to overstate it, but I think there's close to 100.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't even know that.
No, and he's got a lot of really good coaches that are on there, and they're still up. I still pay whatever I need to pay to keep it up, but they're still up. And I went through it a couple months ago. Of course, now with my shitty memory, I can't remember who some of the people were. One of them was James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits before he wrote the book Atomic Habits.
That's really cool.
So there was a lot of things that were like that when I was going through there. I'm like, well, shit, that dude wrote this dude wrote that. The War of Art. I think that's not the Art of War, but it's like a flip of that title.
Yeah.
I forget who that author is, but that was another one that was on there. So there's a lot of good stuff with that. Then we have the Table Talk podcast, which is just kind of me talking at a table.
And for people that don't know, like this table came from the other location as well. Like, when did you get this done?
That one in the conference room used to be in the weight room.
Oh, okay.
So when we came here, we wanted a new table because it's 20th anniversary when we came here.
Yeah.
So that one went there. This one was new to here. And little known fact, if we take the glass off, this logo has another logo underneath it.
Oh.
Because that says 20 2018.
Yeah.
You know, it's not 2018 anymore. I like to live in the past.
Agreed.
But I got to get realistic at some point.
So for everybody listening, we just launched our Better Than Black Friday deals. It's very interesting being on this side of things now because I've seen it for years. I would always look forward to it. I always kind of, I would do a lot of my purchasing during this time, and it was like really cool to see like what would go on sale, what wouldn't go on sale, like how things were kind of maneuvered. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's like I never really realized the level of effort it takes to run different sales and make sure you have the inventory and all this coordination.
Yes.
But one of the things that we just launched today is you're actually wearing it, right? That's the Dave Tate signature flannel, which is awesome.
It's fucked up. I own a clothing line.
Yeah, you do. So how did that kind of come to fruition?
Well, I was really motivated by. I can't even think of a designer, so I can't even make a joke out of this. So that fell flat.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like Gucci or some shit, but I don't know who fucking owns it.
I think it's Mr. Gucci.
Anyhow, it kind of goes along with the all the other limited stuff where we have this was the actual part, behind the scenes part of the discussion, is we wanted the limited apparel to be a line that basically helps support the podcast, which is what we're doing here.
Yep.
So all the proceeds from any of the limited apparel and the signature apparel goes to help support the podcast, which is what that's for, because people have been listening to me bitch since we brought this back about the amount of staff hours and time that it goes into the podcast, and it's really hard to kind of justify the time and the hours. But on the same time, it's very hard to justify the income being generated from a podcast.
Right.
So this is more of a direct way to be able to know exactly how, I don't want to say how much, but to gauge the support of the podcast from the people that are listening to this limited apparel. Or when we were so buy the flannel shirt, it does help the podcast. It's on the site now, launched today. It's limited. Hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully, but each time that we've done a limited apparel run, we've sold out in a couple days.
Yep.
In all fairness, we still haven't bumped up the quantities that we're ordering. So people don't think that we're selling like thousands of fucking flannels. We're not ordering that many. It's a limited run, so we don't lose our ass.
Yep.
So it is profitable, so it does help. But getting back, when we were talking about what apparel to do, it's like all my ideas were like, yeah, Dave, no. You wear that, and you like that. But I'm like, Zubaz pants, black, Elitefts, flannel shirts, cut off sleeves, and they're like, no. I'm like, okay then. So then we kind of circled around and said, Dave's really not going to have a big impact on the, on the limited
He's not the big fashion guy.
Yeah, like the other shit. But these signature items will be ones that I would actually wear.
Yeah, and to see, I mean, for those who don't know, Dave was actually out here training in other flannels that didn't make the cut. Like he really ripped the sleeves off and was training in them and was doing everything that he was pretty much putting everything through the paces that Dave would put something through.
Well, the problem with fucking flannels, right, is if you get it to fit like it's supposed to fit, like I actually give a fuck about how things fit, but follow me here. The fucking forearms of most flannels don't fit for shit. So the answer to that is you cut the fucking sleeves off. So that's the first reason to cut the sleeves off. The second reason are elbow sleeves. If you're gonna train. So I whack off hoodies, I whack off everything just because of the elbow sleeves. That's the second reason to whack them off. Whack them off. Listen to that. We're just going down the wrong road. So just keep. So I whack off everything as much as I possibly can.
It's good for you.
So anything, and then squatting, and this is kind of fucked up, but it is still stuck in my head. I've always squatted in a flannel shirt going way, way back, or a polo shirt.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with it being a polo shirt or a flannel shirt. They're a little thicker. It holds the bar a little bit better, especially when you chalk it. So now in my brain, if I'm like squatting seriously, I need to put a flannel shirt on, even though I use a yoke bar. It makes no goddamn difference because it's not going to like slip around.
Right.
But mentally, it's just kind of part of the thing. So when all those samples came and they didn't fit my forearm, I'm like, fuck it, hack the sleeves off. There you go. And you can bet your ass the sleeves of this is going to be hacked off.
Oh yeah, it was. We were like, Dave, don't hack them off right this second.
Yeah.
We need this in its full form for the podcast.
But there's only so many out there, so I was only allowed to take this true story. I was only allowed to take 2. So I grabbed a 3X, which will be my casual dress dinner one, right? Then I grabbed a 2X, knowing all in well I'm going to hack the sleeves off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but I can't go like hack the sleeves off more because I'm not allowed to take anymore.
Yeah, right. There's a certain amount of sleeves that can be piled up in your office where there's a problem.
Yeah, to keep on the ad part of the podcast, the Better Than Black Friday, we should talk a little bit about that, because this year I just realized this, I didn't write a letter to email out to people to explain exactly what it is. Normally that will go out before we actually start launching the specials and deals, and I didn't do that. So this is my letter, I suppose.
There we go.
The reason it started is we're not this huge giant company. We already went down that road, before. So, and it's just full trend. Black Friday deals suck, right? Yeah. They're great for the customer.
Yeah.
But when it's online retail, this is not like big box stores where they're going to put something at this very low price just to get you in the door so you buy other shit. Online retail, you buy what you want to buy, then you leave.
And that's it.
There's no,
It's not like an upsell or anything.
No, it's almost impossible to do any kind of upsell. So what originally was happening years ago is everybody would start scrambling around and put these deep discounts on stuff. I'm like, how the fuck are they doing this? Mm-hmm. Because you don't make any money. Not only are you not making any money, and seriously, in many cases, you're making no money. I mean, you're breaking even on what it is, or your margin is so low, you're kind of spinning your head like, what the fuck?
What's the point?
And then it's like, well, it's thanking the people that, there's different ways to look at it. It's thanking the people that have supported us all year, so now they get it at a lower price and all this kind of shit. But when it's all stuck on, say, Black Friday, you're just killing your staff, which at that point, because of those sales, is coming in Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
And then working that whole next Friday and that whole weekend. So basically their whole Thanksgiving's just gone because they got to be in shipping shit the whole time because you put it all in there. And after a point in time, you start thinking, is this fucking necessary?
Right.
It's not when you say the normal order count for us now, it's low. It's like 50 orders. I mean, it's not a lot of orders coming out of here.
It's not like Amazon here.
Yeah. It's something around that. And then all of a sudden it's like 3,000. So now you got stress through the roof. You got everybody freaking the fuck out. Then me, I'm looking at the margin like, fuck, we ain't even making we're making as much money on the 50 fucking order day. It's like, this makes no fucking sense.
Right.
So the Better Than Black Friday kind of started of how can we take that, still have Black Friday, still offer competitive pricing on Black Friday, and you do stock more, for that. But how do we spread it out, to make it easier on the staff? So thus the Better Than Black Friday started. So now it's a category, and now it's the yoke bar and bands. So I don't believe that. I think the bands right now are 40% off. They haven't been 40% off in years.
Yeah,
and they'll probably never be 40% off again. I think the deepest we've gone on those this year might be 25, 30%.
Yeah, I would have, if I had seen 40%, I was stocking up.
Yeah, so then Black Friday, yes, they're going to be on sale, but it will not be 40%. So the yoke bar is another one to where it's free domestic shipping on the yoke bar right now. The yoke bar during this time of the year is basically more along the lines of how many we can get built and how many we can put out. So yes, I'm hesitating because I'm assuming we're going to have them
right
come the end of November.
Yeah.
But assuming we have them by the end of November, they're not going to be on the same deal that they are right now. Wow, with this bar as well, with this offer, we've capped it. So we're like 60% of what the cap number of bars are, we're going to let out for that, and then it will stop. So that's or end of day Thursday is when it's going to stop. Anyhow, to dial it back, because I don't want to go in, throughout the whole month, every 3-4 days, there's going to be a different category, different product that will be put out on the site, offered lower than what we're going to offer it for on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So what that does, and I've been doing this for a few years, is the people who follow the site will see that. So in essence, what we're doing is we're giving the people who have supported us, over the years, a better opportunity to get better pricing than the people who are just going to be scouring Black Friday deals on that Friday through that Monday. So that's what it is. Now, where it gets crazy internally is a lot of times you don't know what the next thing's going to be, because we're still waiting for shit to come in, for one thing. And then there's only so much staff. So if we just have one person that's not in the warehouse, then the apparel becomes something we can't do. So we got to, based upon PTO and vacation time, you got to schedule around that. So it is that's kind of what you're seeing as this balancing act of, well, we can do this. Oh shit, we can't do this.
Right.
So now we got to do this. So then what's the backup of this if that can't happen? And then all the other bullshit that kind of goes along with it. But yeah, they started. So that's what we are.
And I think, granted, I have the inside scoop on what's coming up next a little bit. Really cool. I'm really excited. People watching this live, they can't really see it in the background, but you know exactly what I'm pointing at behind you on the bench. I'm very excited about a couple of the items that we have coming out, because I think they will... a lot of things that people are looking for in different equipment and this and that. It's like we're getting to that, and we're going to be able to give people the things that they've been looking at in other locations. They can finally get with us. So that's really, really exciting. Don't want to put the cat out of the bag on that one yet, though. But for those who are listening, for those who are watching, I really want you to just check it. Just stay up to date with what we're doing. Obviously, our social media and whatnot, we'll be posting everything, but making sure that you can just go to the site. Go to the site, because that will probably change quicker than everything else.
Yeah, the best way that would be the best way is to check the site several times a day. Yeah. So when we change, I call them the heroes. When we change the top hero, that's not always going to be the same time. Sometimes they'll change at 2:00 in the afternoon, sometimes 10. Sometimes they're not going to change until midnight. It's all what's going on, and when Ken and I can get around to figuring out how to actually structure the things, and then how it ties into social media and stuff like that. So I don't want to tell people to check the site a million times a day, but if they check it every day, that will help. The other thing too is within 24 hours of pretty much any offer that we have, an email goes out. So if you're on our email list, you're fine. Yeah, you're gonna get. Never have I had an offer that was out before the email list. Now the limited apparel like the flannels and stuff, that's close. Yeah, that's close sometimes. So yeah, so the mailing list would be the number one way, but we do try to get all of it on social as well. Yeah, like today, honestly, I got the email saying that was up on the site, and I was like, I'm putting something on Instagram right away, and you could just see the people coming to the site from that post, and it was, and that's the cool thing about it being limited, is if you're paying attention, if you follow what we're doing, you'll have a greater chance of kind of picking something up that is truly limited. We're not going to be doing those again. Yes. Well, yeah, no, these, no. The only way I would is, let's say these all sell out today. Yeah. And then, depending if we can get the flannel, there's a whole different conversation there. Yeah. There's supply chain issues. Anybody that denies that's a dumb fuck. Because I'm telling you for a fact, there's supply chain issues fucking everywhere. But say we could, say there were and it was just a fake world that we lived in, that some people live in. But let's say we lived in that same fake world and we sold out really fast. I would have enough time to be able to get back and say, hey, look, go order more, get them, and be able to flip it around and have more. Yeah. We haven't had anything hit that strong yet. But for those that are listening to the podcast, some of them may not hear this, because the majority of the people, sorry, YouTube people, people, whatever it is. Yeah. The majority of the people that digest the content from the podcast are not on YouTube.
Right.
So they'll hear this, a couple of days later. Mm-hmm. The American Cambered Bar, right? We have quantities of that, which will definitely be on Better Than Black Friday sale. Mm-hmm. So since I'm the one that's running them, I'm not going to say with 100% certainty because I have 3 different personalities. I have a feeling.
He's not fucking kidding with that either.
I have a feeling that will probably replace the Yoke Bar. Mm-hmm. So say the Yoke Bar's done later today or tomorrow for sure. That will be one of the next ones that's going to go up because we have the quantities to be able to do that. That's really all I can give out right now. Like our apparel will be, but I can't tell you exactly when.
Yeah, right.
There's other. No, those are, I'm trying to think of the things people might be sitting back on saying, mm-hmm. Hey, I wonder if this is going to be that. Strength equipment, that's hit and miss all the time.
That's a different thing.
Every year we do an annual strength equipment sale, which is typically falls the week before Black Friday. And I have it on my calendar to do that. But the only way I can do that is if my manufacturers and suppliers are willing to take part of the hit with it, because the margins are not that large to be able to offer a discount with that. I still haven't got confirmation one way or another on that. So I'd like to, mm-hmm. But I don't know for sure. I hope so.
Yeah.
And if we do, it's not going to be if I have to do this and I don't have the cooperation and that we just have to eat it all, it's not going to be a price difference where people are going to be like, oh, fuck, I should have waited.
Right.
It's going to be like $20 off a power rack or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it's important to kind of have these conversations about this sort of, this time of year, because I think people just automatically assume Black Friday deals, it's the same every year. Everything gets really, really cheap. And it's like, no, like this is such a dynamic experience. And to be on this side of it is even more dynamic. Like I see you get into your office in the morning and I just hear your keyboard and I'm just like, oh shit, like who's getting this one? Like I don't know what email's going where, but you're watching the data come in, you're watching the views, you're watching this, you're watching that. And it's just like, it's almost like a stock market, right? It's like a buy sell thing. Oh, I hit a button.
No, it's just, I mean, it preps you. I mean, those people that want to own a business, the entrepreneur with the business dream, just understand it's not always, it's not always great, right?
Right.
It's a lot of fucking work, right? So I choose the work. I appreciate the work. I love the work, but sometimes it's a lot of fucking work. So where I was rolling my eyes is, so usually a Black Friday, because that's you. At that point, you're actually tracking. I'm tracking traffic per 15 minutes, 10 minutes, hour, which basically means from the time it launches, which anymore it launches before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit of a bump or a free item or something that hits on Black Friday, but usually from like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, it's like thumb scrolling the fucking analytics.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I just refresh the analytics as you're talking just to make sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's every hour, not even every fucking 10 minutes, through the whole thing, so I haven't had a normal Thanksgiving dinner in 22 years, just because of this, because something breaks. Let's say you just, chill, I'm just going to do, Thanksgiving and all that kind of stuff. But then something breaks on the site. Mm-hmm. Who's watching it?
Well, right.
So you try to give your staff some breathing room. So it's like, fuck, I remember it's better now because I can almost do everything mobilely from my phone. But I mean, I used to have to fucking carry my laptop everywhere I went and then had to have like a little fucking thing you plugged into the side of the laptop to connect to the internet, like your own little
like
mobile
that card or whatever.
Yeah, there's no hot spots.
No,
you had like your little fucking plug-in thing. Then wherever you go, it's like you go there and it's like fuck, you can't get a signal. It's like, we can't be here right now.
Yeah, we got to move.
And, Tree's like, what are you talking about? We cannot be here. I can't be here
The
for
internet
3
doesn't
hours.
exist.
I said, why? Well, let me call Ken. Let me call Ken.
Yeah.
So Ken's been with us for since the beginning. Let me call him and see where he's at, because maybe I can like tap out and he'll watch it. And then when he's done, and that's literally how that whole thing from the back end runs from that Wednesday pretty much all the way through the 2 weeks. It's just fucking insane.
Yeah.
I mean, but you can't, like I said, when it's coming that fast, you can't just disappear for an hour.
No, because you don't know what's going to happen in terms of technology, right? Like the site, there's so many variables. The shipping, I mean, that's a whole different thing in general.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was awful. But I think as people who may own their own business or have any sort of business that they're working on or they want to kind of start, I think it's important to kind of have those conversations, be like, listen, it's just because you're making X amount of money a year doesn't mean you stop doing the basic things that got you there in the first place.
Well, you can't, because eventually it all comes back, unless you have hundreds of people, right? Then you can probably have more breathing room, but it all comes back, because if something doesn't get done, who's going to do it? So you can't, and especially during a busy, high peak time of the year, and for retail, that's what this is. You can't be like, oh, we'll just take care of it Monday. It's like, well, fuck, we can't do that. If we wait that long, there's no way we're going to hit our numbers for the month.
Yeah.
We can't fucking do that. And that's just part, I'm not bitching about it because it's something you sign up for, but that's part of owning a business that nobody ever wants to talk about. They don't get it. Like you have to know a little bit about every single thing that happens. Not that you have to be able to do it, but you need to be able to know enough to be able to find the backup pivot, to be able to work around it and be able to be willing to do that. I want to say 24/7, but not really. I mean, it's at least from my side, at least from 6 a.m. till 11:30, 12 p.m. There's nothing really happening that big.
Yeah.
Overnight. There's a little bit, but I can handle that.
Right.
But to step back, there was a few years ago, there was site load issues that we dealt with for a long time, because you pay based upon, people don't give a fuck about this, but you pay based upon the traffic to the site. So you have to increase what that balance and what that load is during certain times of the year, but you don't want to do too much, because then you're paying basically for shit that you don't need. But if you exceed that, we were crashing, right? And so that was fucked up, because the only way to get it back up was basically a reboot, to the site. Or if bots came in, and that was a big thing, and just trammed your site. That was a big, the reason I'm saying this is because that did suck, because then I had text. We had if certain pages fell, it would ping a text. So at that point in time, I get these texts at like fucking 2 a.m, and 4 a.m. Sometimes there'd be 20 of them throughout the night. It's like, fuck it, I guess I'm just staying up.
Yeah.
Then it's just reboot, and then try to fucking figure out, what's going on. But that's the thrill of e-commerce.
Yeah, and it's no matter how many times like you're in the position, how many times that you go through this, every year is different, right? Every single situation that happens has different variables involved with it, and you can be prepared to some extent, but at the same time, it also has to have that ability to be dynamic in those situations, right?
Well, I mean, one good, I mean, I want to say one good aspect of 2020, but I don't think there's fucking anything good about 2020. But one good aspect about doing this for as long as I have, and especially during that time, because normally and I get frustrated every day, so I don't want anybody to think that I don't. I get frustrated every day, but there's different levels of frustration, and it's just kind of part of the game. But I've seen everything 100 times. So there's very rarely that I'm going to see something that's like, oh, fuck, never saw that before.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shit, okay. And then it's like fuck. And then that's about as much time as you have when you have a business is fuck. Then you're mad for 15 minutes. You came, and then you got to still fix it.
You got to fix it.
So with 2020, it was like fuck every 3 hours. I mean, literally every 3 hours, every fucking day, there was something. So then you become way more calloused, to being able to deal with the business adversity. So then, moving forward, after that, there's still business adversity, and it's once, twice, whatever. I can't count how many times it is, but it's like, oh, fuck it, whatever. We just do this. Just do this. Just pivot here. Just do this. And so for those people that say they started a business in 2019 and the 2020 was just like, oh, fuck, understand you got probably 15 years of business adversity experience in 1 year, which is going to pay off huge moving forward, because bitching and complaining, while it has its point, because I guess it makes you feel good for like a couple minutes, doesn't fix anything.
No.
So it's like, okay, here's this. What's the problem? How do we fix it? How do we move on? Where do we go? And just, if you're that owner, and whatever you want to call it, and you don't have staff that can do absolutely every single thing 24/7, you're working 24/7. So that's the only thing I've ever told people, is to understand that going into whatever they're doing is, it all starts and ends with you when it's accountability, responsibility, and all that. And don't bitch about it, because you kind of knew that going in.
Yeah, you chose it.
Yeah, because when you go in and it's just you, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. That doesn't really, maybe it does drop, but you got to figure out how to build enough revenue to hire enough people to where that's not that.
Yeah.
And then when it's e-commerce, it's still 24/7.
Because you're technically open 24/7.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the weird thing. It's like, just because you're sleeping doesn't mean your website, your store isn't open.
No. I mean, it's not, there's so many scenarios that can happen. So say it's 11 o'clock at night and boom, something just hits social, and it's just a huge clusterfuck, and all these people are just hammering your business for one thing.
Which has happened. And say it's 9 o'clock, say it's 8, or whatever it is, just, and it's not just a couple, it's big. What are you going to do? Right? So if nobody's watching that, what are you going to do? So who's actually watching it to make sure what systems are set up to be able to ping you? Yeah.
Because most of the time it's going to be, this really isn't that big of a deal as this is. It still could be something that needs to be handled, but it's handled behind the scenes. It's handled, differently. Very rarely is it going to need direct intervention online with a troll.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But you still need to be made aware. And what if it did? And say it was a Friday at 8 o'clock, but then nobody checks it until Monday when they get in at 9. Your whole business reputation could be absolutely pummeled.
Yeah.
Because nobody checked it. So that's what I'm getting to, is when you're the owner, who's checking it.
There almost needs to be that, definitively having systems in place is the way to go, but it's almost an obsession, right? Like at that point, right? There's almost a point where it's like, this is, especially if you're just starting out, right? If it's only you, it's like you need to be fully engrossed in every process from start to finish. But even as an owner, as you get bigger business, as you get more employees, it's like you still have to be hands-on in everything to some extent.
Well, if you own a business and you're not obsessed with your business, you probably shouldn't own the business.
Right.
That's just a fact. Now, I don't want people to misunderstand with, say, just the comment example that I'm giving. I'll look through, but that doesn't mean I'm actually reading them.
Right.
So say there's a thread of 100 comments on something. It's just like a thumb click through. I'm just looking for, is this blowing up? I'm so indifferent to all that shit anymore. It makes no difference.
Still trying to learn that trait.
Yeah, so I barely see, what's good nor what's bad, but I do see if something is
consistent.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is I need to stop and actually read this. So it's like almost speed reading. It takes zero time,
Yeah.
for that. Or it could be somebody asking about, hey, where do you get that glued ham? Well, don't stop, and then I'm going to put the URL.
Yeah, right. Right here.
Yeah, because that's a potential sale, and you miss that sale, you could get that sale because you just took the time to let that person know and engage, where nobody gave a fuck, so they just went and bought from somebody else.
Right.
So,
and that's I think the biggest thing that people have a tendency of forgetting when it comes to business is the sales aspect of it. Is like learning how to sell, learning, that whole process. Like, how did you, you were a trainer, obviously, for years and years, and that's selling. Like, people forget that. It's not just training people. The training people, it comes after the selling the people.
Yes. Well, fortunately for the personal training, my parents owned a business, so I should start there. They owned a business selling high-end appliances. Hey, what a correlation. But so I grew up around fights at the dinner table, discussions at the dinner table about certain business values, how they work. I saw, God, this is a deep fucking path I could go down here.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
We haven't had like a business-oriented conversation.
I listened to discussions on, how the customer's almost always right. But there's even the ones that aren't right still kind of need to be taken care of or not. There's a balance, where if it goes too far, I learned you get back in the, you make it known to that person that this is bullshit.
Yep.
And it's people calling my dad to bitch about the range going out that was a year old on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
The conversations I heard there were not pleasant conversations.
I imagine.
And now if it was somebody that just purchased it, he would leave and go fix the fucking range. Not call the repair guy that he had on staff, because that's his Thanksgiving with his kids. This is his business, his responsibility. So I grew up with those kind of things. I also grew up learning that if you think your state and local government are going to try to help you as a small business, you are fucked. I saw that firsthand through blizzards, floods, storms, things that just trashed businesses to where, they would get absolutely nothing, but the big box store, they're right back immediately. And it's like, no, wait a fuck, so all those type of things. And there's a lot more. I could go on for hours about things I learned about business from that. Paid off a lot over the last few years, because it's like, oh yeah, you really think they give a fuck? Wrong. They don't. Move on, forget about it, go this way.
Right.
Argue bitch all you want, but it's not going to change a fucking thing. They don't care. They only care about the people who are giving them a fucking shit ton of tax dollars.
Yep.
Maybe rightfully so. I can see both sides. I get it. But either way, it doesn't change what has to be done with that. I kind of forgot where I was going with all this because of this. But, about the sales.
The sales, yeah.
So I learned from the salesman he had there, and this was just, instead of like, here goes sell these chocolate bars for football. The dude would sit down and say, now listen, try to sell me this chocolate bar. And I'm like, well, just buy the chocolate bar. Like, it's
just
football,
buy the
man.
thing. Yeah.
And he's like, no. So I kind of learned early on that, other people were going house to house and house to house. I was just selling all 50 to one fucking person. Just go find the person and say, hey, here's this is for this. You just got to have take the time to build the right inside track to be able to sell that one person. You make one sale, you're done. You don't have to worry about it. But when I graduated, my first job was with Bally selling memberships, and there was more formalized sales training there, which was, I like more of a spin sales approach. There's different sales approach, but it's more of a hard sales approach. But I didn't like that hard closing approach. But what I learned that carried over to the personal training aspect is there's really only 4 objections: time, commitment, spouse, and money. That's it. So if you have dialogue with them, so how does your spouse feel about you training, getting healthier, So what time are you going to work out? I mean, just throwing examples out.
Yeah, right.
What brings you in here today? And da 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 da. Have you ever come in before or gone somewhere before for that same thing? So are you more committed now? You see, so I'm trying to get these things because when you go to close, it's usually, well, I need to talk to my significant other. So now you're in a headspace that you got to be able to read people non-verbally, but you're kind of in a headspace where you could say, well, didn't you just tell me that they were supportive? Would you like to give them a call
verbal
right
jousting.
Now? It is. Yeah. It is. And there's the right ways and wrong ways to go about all this.
Right.
Sometimes you just do want to back off on it, because you don't want to get involved with that. But sometimes you can tell this is just the excuse.
Yeah.
And time commitment. Usually it's money, right? So if you can get them to money, then at least you've taken the other objectives off the table. And then it may be money because maybe you just offered the biggest package there was.
Right.
And there's 2 other packages that you would be able to offer. Or there's other options, that get them within that range.
Yeah.
Usually, for me though, that's where I stopped. Now, the way I was trained...
just insult.
The way I was trained was the insulting part of it. Well,
Yeah.
let's figure out how much money you're spending getting out of shape each day.
Yeah, right.
Now, that's where it gets to me a little bit too hard pressed. But I do think that conversation has a place in a way beforehand with Gen Pop.
For sure.
Because they may be spending an obscene amount of money each week on things that they really don't think are as bad or getting them out of shape is, let's say, the Starbucks coffee monster, stuff like that. You start adding all that stuff up. And sometimes with just a slight moderation in that, they had the money, to be able to hire the trainer to be able to get in shape. But again, that's a careful conversation to be able to have, and maybe one that just comes off of the table if they're new to the club and new to training, to where you hold that, you've built this relationship on these other things. Let's just get them started and showing up on a regular basis, doing their own thing. But then you can have those other conversations as you're visiting with them during downtime. And that's how I did that. That was a big part of it. The other part was, I'm terrible with people's name. I'm still not sure I know your fucking name, right?
Yeah, I did. I know for a fact.
Actually, we got this dude that trains on the weekend. I think its name is John, Nate, or Calvin.
Yeah, it changes. It changes.
Now it's got so fucked up, I don't even know. Cameron, there, right? So the other big thing that I did, and I don't know how much this is going to really impact unless you work in a club where you're getting those people off of the floor, is anytime I would meet somebody, I write down their name, write down. The club I worked at did laundry, so I was able to write down the shirt, shorts, shoes. A lot of clubs don't do that, but normally people are going to train in the same shoes. So you can write down the shoes just to be able to equate who that person is. So like red hair, Nike shoes with green stripe, orange laces.
Right.
And then each time you see them, you just have normal small talk, but then you write down what
they're doing.
You talked about. Because eventually over a period of time, you're going to figure out their kids play soccer. Or then when the season happens, and then when you come in, it's like, hey, Jill, how'd Jamie do at this soccer game this weekend? All that shit adds up over a period of time. So this notebook, secrets, whatever you want to call it, relationship book would be a good thing. Because even if it didn't lead to that person being a client, it still built a better relationship with that person who could refer a client. But within the first 2 months of the club I was at, I was full. I was capped out. I had no more room in the schedule. And that was because of that. And I am not a social person.
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
So this was intentional, for that reason, to be able to get that. Then it's just building the referrals from there. Online, that's a whole different ballgame.
It's a weird animal.
Yes, because the social aspect, communication aspect, I'm talking to a fucking camera.
Yeah.
Or even more weird, you're talking to a phone. which I still, you know,
it's a weird one.
For a while I was good at it. And then, you know, I quit doing it for a long period of time, and it's just kind of being reacquainted with it again, because it's hard to think that there's actually people on the other side, but there's thousands of people on the other side of that camera. So it's just a different, you know, gateway to be able to get through there, but you have no feedback.
That's the biggest thing that I run into is you start like even like filming videos with Jacob because of this Black Friday thing, and we've started batch shooting, so we have videos for the month like ahead of time. We'll be shooting videos and it's like, yeah, that was good. And then you start thinking, I was like, what's the audience gonna think? What's, you know what I mean? You don't have that feedback, right? And especially with like social media posts, social media stories, like Instagram stories, stuff like that, is like there will be some things that just hit and you can't put on a finger why it hit or why it did the way it did, or you spend all this time on a post and it just falls flat, and it's like, why did that happen? It's like, I don't, there are definitive reasons why it could have happened, but there's also a million reasons why it didn't, you know what I mean?
And I do think those in business have to pay attention to that, because my general attitude for years and years was just fuck it. Who cares? Just do what you feel is good content, be yourself, put it out there, and fuck it. Let the cards fall where they may.
Yeah.
And that is a great attitude to have. But the problem is that attitude will never produce enough customers to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
It will produce enough customers to slowly get you by. But if you're trying to grow, it's going to get you to a certain point. That's it. I'm not saying that you need to sell out to whatever that audience base is. What I'm saying is you got to look and see what messages are resonating with the people and stick on those topics. For instance, now we're on business, right? So either this podcast is going to suck or it's going to do the same as everything else, or it's going to do really, really good. So if it sucks, we don't talk about business.
This is the last time we do this.
Right. And I can talk about this for fucking, I probably know more about this horse shit than training.
Sure.
But if it's not resonating, it doesn't mean that you try to be who you're not. You just present what you know and you're confident in that the audience wants to hear. Yeah. And there's only certain metrics that you can go by. Obviously, we ask people for comments, shares.
Absolutely, because we need the feedback.
Yeah, all that helps. It helps tremendously because it helps guide it a little bit. But as I said in one of the last episodes, when you look at this stuff and there's like 300 likes on a video that's got 5,000 views. It's like, well, fuck, I guess they didn't like this. Yeah. You know, it's, well, a lot of people just don't hit like. Well, fine. Well, what do we go on?
You're right.
You know, so that's where it gets weird with that online space. What I can say is you don't want to go and look at people who have bigger followings or look at competitors that have bigger sales and then try to be them. Even if I wanted to, I can't fucking be them. I don't want to fucking be them. You know, for myself, I want to give the audience what they want from me, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of fucking trying to be somebody else. If they don't like me, fuck it. They don't like me. I don't give a fuck. Go someplace else. I don't care. Yeah. But it's more than that. Like, because I do see people give advice, business advice, out there that's like, just fuck it, be yourself. And like, yeah, I agree.
It's a yes.
I agree, but you got to be yourself on what your customer base wants. I mean, it's fuck. I love to rant about politics, especially the last couple of years, but this is not what our audience wants. Right. If anything, they're probably listening to us, so they don't have to listen to that bullshit. Yeah, right. Because they're hearing it all the other fucking time. So if I gave them my political views, you know, whatever it is, because I hate both fucking sides, but if I gave them my political views, which I guess is hate them all, then they're going to leave because they don't want that. Right. Then I'm doing a disservice to them. So you can't, that's why I have a problem where people are saying, whatever side of the spectrum they're on, you need to stand up, you know, for whatever it is. Fine, good. I'll do that in my local fucking government. I'll do that with the people I know in the area that I actually do have some influence and control over in a personal level. But how about on this level, I do what our fucking audience wants us to do, and either talk about business type shit or this type shit or training, and not dilute them with a bunch of bullshit they're sick and tired of everybody else talking about.
Right. And I think that's a good point to kind of bring up. And it's something that you do well is you differentiate. Granted, if people think Elite FTS, they're going to think Dave Tate, and that's fantastic. But you've done a good job of still trying to separate yourself away from the business on certain things, right? Like the business is an entity of itself. And I think people forget that, especially when they're first starting out. It's hard to differentiate your own views, your own beliefs, your own direction with the business, right? Because ideally, like, you want to run a business that kind of aligns with your core values and your principles, right? Like, that's kind of what you want to do. But there comes a point when that business grows to a certain point where it's like, okay, well, my voice isn't the most important voice right now. Like, it's this customer base, this niche, or whoever your target is, they want X. And I may not be the best person at producing X, so I'm going to find somebody that is, and you just build, right?
Yes, because my voice isn't the most important voice is the voice of the people who are buying product and supporting your company. That's the most important voice. That's kind of what I'm getting back to is what is it that they want to hear about? So if they want to hear about A, B, and C, and I know people who are much better versed at A, B, and C than I am, then they should hear from those people. Yeah. Or let's just say they only want to hear C, whatever that is. And I'm very good practically at what C is. I still only have one way to be able to get that message out on C. So if you say the same thing that I say, the way that you're saying it's going to be different than what I say, but its core value, it's still the same thing. When you say it, these people are going to receive it far better than when I say it, you know? So that's the other reason why you can't just have one voice of a brand, because not everybody is going to relate to you. Unfortunately, you're not fucking God. Yeah, right. You know, and fuck, not everybody relates to God. So there you go. Yeah, right. so that's a big part of it from that standpoint as well. And that's not why it was founded. You know, it was founded to help people become stronger. I mean, live, learn, pass on is what it is. You know, to be able to, at its core level, get all that out, you know, so people understand that. So if that's just one person, so it's just me, I'm taking the realm, that's just me, I'm only going to be the person that's doing all this and all that. Is that really doing that? Yeah. No, because the example, the core example, if it was just me on everything, main voice of everything, and it's live, learn, pass on, is that really solidifying that message? Or is it showing, man, that message is kind of bullshit, because if he was really passing on, wouldn't there be other people that were passing on with him? Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm running into that as a little bit as well, is like, to kind of go back to like talking to an audience and talking to a camera or talking to a phone. And if you're a new business owner or a business owner in general, and it's like, how the hell do I do this thing when I'm used to selling in person? I came from a background of selling in the seafood industry, and that was very like old school. I'm saying like pen and paper, ringing the phone off the hook, just like day in, day out, having those relationships and developing those relationships over time. But now you're in a position where you're talking to a phone, talking to a camera. You still have to have that audience in mind. You almost have to, you have to understand who the person is you're trying to communicate with. Yes. And so you can use the right verbiage. You can use the words that they use. You can connect with that audience. And the idea is if I was like a PhD and I was a doctor of this, that, and the other thing, and I thought when I was doing a video, I was talking to other doctors, that regardless of how good the information is, it wouldn't hit with the audience that we're trying to communicate with. It's like, it just doesn't match up. And I think one of the take-home messages is to really understand who you want to talk to, and talk to them every time that camera comes up. Yes, and it's in the structure of the message, right? So you can have people get behind, well, they don't want to do it for a lot of different reasons. A, it's uncomfortable. Where the more you do it, it's not going to be as uncomfortable.
Sure.
So, I mean, it is. I understand that because there's ebb and flow on the way that I produce content through Elite FTS. So it's there, then it pulls back. It's there, it pulls back. Normally I pull back because I think the prevalence of my presence becomes too big. So then I have to pull it back so the other voices can be heard and then kind of fluctuate from that. But when I do, so it's, and this will be a great example for people to look at because they're on YouTube.
Yep.
So if you look at last week, I made a video with my fucking phone. And obviously I'm uncomfortable talking to the phone because I'm saying it and you can see it in the video. Fuck it, I did it anyhow.
Sure.
Right, then I figured out how to edit the stupid thing on iMovie and all this other shit to be able to put it up there. This video's got no fucking thumbnail. It's got no outro. It's just, okay, but you know what it has is the message format.
Authenticity.
If you're going to put, yes, it needs to be authentic. And if you're going to put content out, I think of it from, is this going to help that person that's receiving this? Is it going to help them live? Is it going to help them learn? Is it going to help them pass on? Is this going to be something that when they look at it, they're like, wow, I could try that in my training and it might help. Or, wow, fuck, I didn't think about that. Or, you know what? I need to tell so-and-so to watch this.
You're right.
Because they just tore their triceps. So if I cover that live, learn, pass on, it doesn't matter if the phone is on a tripod on a fucking, video, it's got more views than any of the other videos we've done in the past, fuck knows how long. It's a fucking phone.
Yeah, I know.
So when you...
Fucking great.
Yeah, so when you look at what you're talking about for that person that wants to try to get their voice out there and wants to try to be on social media, they don't need to worry about the editing and this and this and this and this. They just need to worry about, is this message something that's going to help people live, help them learn, and help them pass on? If you cover those three things, it will build traction and it will be authentic, you know? And so people may look at what that is and say, oh, fuck, all you need to do is put something on a camera and, put a phone on a camera and just go that route. No, that's not true.
Right.
They got to be able to see what's behind the message from that. And now they also suck to do because I train with music and then doing that shit, doing those things sucks to do. So there is that discomfort from that as well. So what I'm trying to tell those future business owners or people that are trying to build that is there's no excuse. If you don't think that the video is good, then just refilm it. But if you think it's going to look like shit and that people aren't going to think it looks like, Juji Mufu or it looks like, go look at the fucking video I just did. Right now, could it be better? Fuck yeah, it could be way better. But go look at
Jacob's
it.
back there twitching out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy that didn't even know how to fucking open iMovie, and the only reason I had to figure it out is actually the one before. Actually, look at the one before that one. So it's not the last one. The last one I actually used iMovie to try to stitch different phone videos together. Look at the one before it. It's only one because I knew I wasn't going to be able to stitch anything together.
Right.
Because of the way it was. So my point to them is just fucking do it. If you look uncomfortable, people are going to say, cool, at least this is the real person.
Yeah.
This isn't scripted. This is for real.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ, our president falls asleep and mumbles fucking letters in a and it's on the largest stage.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure most people aren't going to give a fuck if you're using a phone and you misuse a word here and there.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing, right? Because like jumping into this position and being, it's like, okay, now we're making videos. It's like the first few videos I did just were absolute stinkers. Like there's nobody watched them. Nobody knew who the fuck I was at all. And people still don't know who the fuck I am. And it's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But the idea is like, it starts with having knowing who you're talking to. Like it makes it way easier. Like for example, on that video, who were you talking to? Like, do you know? Like, did you have somebody in mind that you were talking to? No?
Well, no, but it's the way I do that is the way what I will talk and how I will present those things is if you were standing there asking me the question, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing this so I can learn how. So that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to somebody as if they were just here in the gym.
Yep.
And that's where, all this stuff that we just went over with business, by the way, I can circle back
Sure.
to all of it being what you do in a gym.
Oh, absolutely.
From how you would train somebody, how you structure your own training, and still time commitment, spouse, and money, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all comes from all those areas.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's having had so much interaction with fans of Elite FTS on the YouTube, on the Instagram, social media, everything like that, especially with like the train your ass off, everybody coming out here, I start to get that a clearer and clearer picture of who it is that we communicate to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, I think it was like 2 to 5 years of training experience. They want to get stronger. They want the messaging becomes clearer and clearer, and we get more efficient. And as you can kind of see granted, the views are up and down, left and right on our YouTube videos, but since March that Jacob and I started to now, it's like things are kind of have that trajectory going up in a positive direction, because I think our team is getting better at understanding who we're talking to and how to present the information and the message. Absolutely. And that's a big part of it too, is I think
it's a bigger part.
Absolutely. And I think that's a bigger part to even touch on, is like, we've only been doing this together for 7 months, 6 months, 7 months. And it's like, holy shit. Like I'm looking back at what we did in March, and Jacob, you can chime in whenever you want. I look back at those videos, I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, what were we trying to say? Like, it just wasn't clear. We didn't understand like what was going to hit, or like how it was going to hit, or how people were going to respond to it. And it's just very uptight, right? And now I've been able to get the reps in, and just like training, right? You get a certain amount of reps in, things start to get more comfortable, and now you can start to expand. You can try more things that are more difficult. You can try more intricate things. You can, you can progress, and that's all it is. It's just reps under the bar in the gym, literally in the gym, doing reps of videos, doing podcasts, doing everything. And it's cool to, and I hope people can see this, is like, I came into this position in a way where I was such a massive fan of Elite FTS and what you've done over the years and what everybody that has ever been a part of it has done. And to be like, okay, now you go do the thing. And it was like, oh shit, like, this is a lot. It was a lot. But I think, again, like, kudos to the team. And this is I'm never going to say like, oh, it was because of me. It was bullshit. It's not. It's because of everybody. It's everything is a team effort, from the feedback I get from you, the feedback I get from the audience, Jacob being a stud, Sheena, everybody. Goodwin. Yes. I'm talking to Goodwin about equipment every single day, like trying to get the fine points on this and that and the other thing. And it's a really, really cool thing for the audience to see I'm learning with them. Like when we have a guest out, I'm learning that I don't know jack shit about that person from any more than anybody else does online. So it's like, I get to be that person to ask those questions and learn about that person.
Yes. There's a process, as I told you guys yesterday. There's no doubt that we need to add people to the content department. We all know that. But as I said yesterday, I'm not so concerned about, at this point, I'm not so concerned about the skill set.
Yeah.
Because we can teach that. I'm more concerned about the culture fit. Because when you force things, and I did try to do that over the past year, it fucking never works. There's an acronym. There's a book that Ken Blanchard wrote with Don Shula eons ago called C.O.A.C.H. And the C.O.A.C.H. So conviction, when building a team or basically with anything, these are factors that need to be taken into consideration. And sometimes I'll lose sight of that a little bit. But being conviction driven, are they driven for the same purpose? Or if not really for the same purpose, because you can't assume everybody is going to have the exact same purpose or aim as the company. But how do I define this? So if the aim of the company is to live, learn, pass on, to grow the company, all those type of things, people may have different aspirations where this is what they want to do, but then what they really want to do is here. Okay. And maybe that does stay in line with the company, or maybe at some point it's going to break off and be something different than the company. But during that time, that conviction driven line, that linear line, that growth line has to be going in that same direction, no matter where that person's end goal is, which they're never going to tell you in their mind, is that's where that is. As long as it's on that you want it on that same path, that's being the same aim, right? I think some people will look at, when they bring people into an organization or a company, that end thing is their thing, and don't realize that maybe this is, if you're bringing somebody in that's just out of school, this is just to get the experience for a few years for them to move on to what they really want to do.
Right.
So that line's still the same, right, on how that works. It's just their end objective is going to be different than your end objective, but the values are the same. The conviction-driven part is the same. So that's a big part. The second part of that is the O, which is over learning. So you guys probably, I drive you guys crazy. I put things over your head all the time, which forces that over learning to have to take place. Because if all you do is learn what you need to do the job at hand, you're only going to be good for that day, that week, that month. Got to be in a state of that over learning, as well as everybody. It needs to be in there, but it needs to be managed. You can't throw too much, because then it's like, fuck, I'm out of here. This is bullshit. But it has to be, a stretch goal with what that is. And then under the O for the over learning, there's audible ready. I mean, I'm ripping this off of my head from 15 years ago. This is how ingrained this is part of my everyday thinking. The audible ready I've talked about a lot in training, because after that first exercise, what are you going to do? When we talk about training later, we'll get into this. That first exercise determines what happens in the second exercise. The sail doesn't work. What's the pivot going to be? Are you audible ready? So that has to be built. You can say, well, it needs to be built into the system, but you don't know how it's going to break.
Right.
So you have to have people that understand and become audible ready. So like going into any circumstance, knowing this probably isn't going to work. 90% of the things don't. So let's be ready for when it doesn't work to be able to happen that way. And then there's, was C, the convention driven, over learning, audible ready, consistency. And then I don't want to harp on this one a whole lot. You have to consistently do the thing to become better at the thing.
That's it.
So if it's in front of a video camera, you got to consistently be in front of the video camera. If it's analyzing the numbers, you got to consistently be, if it's placing ads, you need to consistently be placing the ads, and consistently be using the same thing over and over again. So if it's, we'll fall back to the social media. If it's Instagram, are you using Instagram, or are you using Hootsuite? Because Hootsuite's going to take you away from the Instagram, so you're not consistently using the Instagram to see what the new features are, to see what the new, to keep up with what's actually going on. Now, am I telling you not to use Hootsuite? By all means, no, not at all, because there's a lot of general shit that can be put through there. But if you're not consistently on that platform, you don't know what the platform can do.
Right.
And then what happens is a year goes by and you're like, fuck, I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, look at that.
Man, and then somebody else is like, the hell, I just saw this with something on Facebook. Somebody else is like, yeah, fuck, they've been doing that for 2 years. Like, fuck. I haven't been consistently doing this aspect. So what else? Then at that point, it's like, fuck, what else did I miss? Then it goes to that over learning, because if I miss something as simple as that, then holy fuck, I missed a lot of big things. Then C.O.A.C.H, and then honesty-based. And that's just a given there too. You can't bullshit people. You can't bullshit staff. You got to be honest with them. And that's not easy for some people, because either they want to maintain this false status of I'm here, you're here, which is actually kind of bullshit. And so forth. But again, all these apply to training. I can go through that same acronym again and say, this is how I use that with my own training. This is how I've used it with helping other people training. They're all universal principles that kind of relate back and forth. Like we talked about on the last podcast, is when you can start to link how this relates to this, and they're both important aspects of your life, or they're important aspects of somebody else's life. So I can take these things where this has been more or less a business conversation. I could take all these same principles, take all the business accolades, all the business stories out, replace them with training stories, and still put out the same principles for people to relate to. When you can relate those principles, say life principles, whatever you want to call them, to something else, that opens, when we were talking about communication before with the people you're speaking to, that opens your door to a whole nother world of people that you can be able to help, influence, pass on, and get better, because they won't understand.
Yeah.
This is what a customer thinks. This is how this relates to, you know, a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, but they can understand this is how it relates to your 3-rep max, your 1-rep max, your conditioning, and so forth.
Yeah, and it's funny because actually, we're going to go through the super chats a little later, but we had a few people message us and say like, hey, like your channel grew 20,000 subscribers since March, right? Like I think about, I don't know, and then it was about 100,000 for, I don't know, a couple of years.
Well, it was, if you go back, it took us, the site that you're seeing that we're on right now, it had to be started because of a legal issue
right.
that we were associated with, that we had to settle. You know, so we settled outside of court, so we had to abandon the YouTube channel that we had, that I believe started in 2001. So from that 2001 till I think 2005, we had about 50, 60,000 subscribers. Then we came over to this channel, we went to 0. So in essence, I can say, I don't want to go back to 2001, from 2005 until last year when we hit 100,000, it took 17 years to get 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
And so, and now our we might grow, was it 3,000 is what last month was?
Yeah, I think we're averaging around 3,000.
We grow an average like 3,000. So at that rate, we'll have 200,000 followers in what, another 10 years? So,
yeah, right.
I mean, when you look, this is where I see what they're saying. It's like, hey, your channel grew from 100,000 to 120,000 in a 3-month period of time, but let's zero out and look at what it's done over its entire lifetime.
Oh, for sure.
And what the growth rate is now and where I project it to be in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, obviously, you know, and now the growth rate's actually slowed over the last 90 days. So we got to reassess and be like, okay, what we're doing here isn't working as well as what it was before.
Right.
So what do we need to be able to do different?
Yeah.
You know, from that.
And I think that's, again, that's a good point to bring up is to don't assume that what you're doing is going to work forever, because it won't. It just won't. No. Like there's a difference between being consistent and then doing the same thing, right? Like consistently putting the work in the right directions is good. Constantly putting videos out is great. Constantly putting social media posts out are great. But if you're not taking any information back out of those, right? Like the comments, the views, the likes, the shares, the clicks to the website, because realistically, the purpose of social media is to bring them back to the website.
Yeah. At some point in time, though, you're still kind of just throwing shit against the wall.
Always. You always. But I think that should be the main point. Is like at no point is someone like, I know exactly how to grow to 100. It's like, no, you don't.
No, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is, let's say you got a video with 2,000 views, and this is from a YouTube standpoint. You might have 15 people say, man, you should do this. Well, that's 15 out of the 2,000, right? And then how many of those 15 they're commenting, but how many actually subscribe, how many like? And this is before I even talk about how many will potentially be customers.
Yeah, right.
So that, to a certain extent, yeah, that helps. It helps to have ideas. You want to do what people are actually suggesting for you to be able to do, but it's such a small percentage because very few people comment at all. So you got to look at it and say, okay, there's 2 ways to look at it. There's an optimistic way to look at it. Like, well, okay, this video got 10 comments and 3 people thought this was great, and there's 2,000 people. Right, so okay, there's 1,990 that don't think it was worth a fuck to even comment on.
Right,
that would be the negative way to look at it. Yep. And so only 10 people gave a fuck, but out of the 10 people, only 3 actually liked it enough to say something about it. So 3 out of the 2,000, right? Because that's how I look at criticism. So if I'm seeing criticism, it's like, fuck that. I ain't gonna bother this. If they're, well, you always look and see if they actually are a customer too.
Yeah,
because that's a big, from the criticism standpoint, because there's a lot of people that go online that will bash your company and bash your shit, and then when I look them up, they've never purchased anything, and that's fucking far more than what people actually think. But anyhow, but yet we're still saying like, comment, subscribe, because they are analytics that you want to be able to look at. But it still comes down to, this isn't working. But then how do you define that? Because we are not trying to build a YouTube brand, because there's no way that the revenue we generate from YouTube is going to come close to paying you and Jacob. It's not even fucking fathomably close. It's 20%. It's like we're so fucking far away from that if all we did was push, and this is what we're kind of learning, if we pushed all of our resources into just that aspect, then we're not selling any product.
Right.
Because generally the YouTube base, and this is, granted, this is a fine line to walk, right? Because there's a lot of people that are watching this that do support us, that do buy our products, that do support the brand, that do share things. They are there, and I thank you guys tremendously, because without you, we wouldn't be doing this thing.
Yeah, no.
But the vast majority don't give a fuck. They just want the content and don't give a fuck about supporting it.
Yep.
So that's just a YouTube. So when you look at the YouTube analytics as the business owner, you got to understand that. We can do a product video, and we might sell one product from that video, but put all that time out there. But that one product video sells more product than the other videos do.
Oh, absolutely.
By 100%.
Well, right.
So
yeah, and that's the thing that we're starting to do a little bit more, even on the YouTube side of things, is like just to have those principles that we want to adhere to with our content. Is like, what's the purpose of this? What is, at the end of the day, what is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is to bring attention to the products and services that we offer. So it's like, okay, we're educating, but yeah, you know what? We're going to use our shit, and we're going to tell you that we're using our shit, and we're going to tell you where you can buy our shit that we're using in this video, right? And it's funny because you'll see, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, someone go, this is just an advertisement. Fuck yeah, it is. Like, it definitely is, and it should be, because this is a service that we are offering, this information. I mean, let's backtrack that just a little bit, though, because look at the competitors and just say the home gym market. Yeah.
Right? Look at the content that they're putting out. How much content are they putting out that's actually going to make somebody get stronger or become better in the gym?
Yeah, none. Yeah,
none to little.
We've already done that analysis. And it's
little to none, right? So I would say that's advertisement. Where I would say what we're doing is we're educating, but yes, we're going to put out stuff to be able to let people know, because a lot of the people that are watching this stuff don't know that we actually sell product.
Right.
Right? Because for a long time, and this could be partially responsible for why, actually it is responsible for a lot of the reason why the channel didn't grow for so long, and probably why it still doesn't grow that well now, is I was so against that for the longest period of time. We only tried monetizing this thing over the last 3 years because I was 100% fucking against that. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not going to try to monetize and make money on helping people get stronger. That's just fucking wrong. That's fucked up. And I still feel that way. But what happens when you feel that way is you stifle your reach, and you stifle the ability for you to be able to grow and put out more content.
Right.
And it got so bad at a point in time where we had to constrict almost all of our content because it had to go into other areas of the business that was actually helping us grow, because we didn't have the personnel to be able to do both. That at that point in time when we had to constrict, and it was during 2020, we had to constrict because of that, is in my mind, it was fuck this. I never, ever want to have to do this again, because a big part of my driving factor is to be able to help get people stronger, even if they can't buy from us. If they're the teenage kid or, you know, the person that just can't afford it right now, but they need help. All these other fuckers want to charge them for simple shit on the bench press. Like, oh, pay me $100 fucking for me to tell you what grip to use. Fuck that. Here's what you do. Go look at this video. That's bullshit. I mean, there's certain things that, yes, people should be monetized for, but when I had to constrict because of the business reasons, that was a wake-up call that we have to figure out how to put out content that can help these people get stronger, that can never, ever have to be pulled back beyond a certain point, fucking ever. And that is when it was like, okay, we have to figure out how to monetize this. We have to figure out how to monetize that, because I have to keep a system in place that allows the people like me, the people that came up with me, that learned from people, to still be able to give back to help those people that may not be able to afford it or don't have the access to it because of where they live. Maybe they don't have a gym to be able to go to. Maybe they don't have this. And there are the people, many of the people that are following this, the ones that earlier I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. There are those people who do buy from us simply for the fact that that's their way to be able to help those people who are in those garage gyms, in those houses, or in those other gyms that don't have access to the coaching like other people do. So they can't like up and leave their job and go help this person. But they can support this company that's going to be able to always make sure they're building this path that those people are always taken care of. So that is, yes, while we're monetizing and we're trying to monetize and we're trying to figure out how to make money on all this content, that path isn't for us to like buy Rolexes and to be able to and to be able to, you know, flaunt fucking, you know, money and cars and shit like that on YouTube. It's enough to be able to keep this part.
It's just self-sustaining.
Self-sustaining. So I never have to dig into that ever again, because that fucking pissed me off. I'm still mad about it now, because I should have never let that fucking happen in the first place. If I had the foresight to look further forward, to be able to see how do we protect this, because to me, that's really the most important. Once you take care of that, then the other stuff should take care of itself to a point. So I had to backtrack on that just a little bit, because that's an important aspect. So the content we put out has to help people. You know, it has to have that. I don't think we've ever put out one piece of content that's, here's this rack, here's what this does. Maybe the storage thing yesterday, but very rarely is there anything that there isn't some educational takeaway.
But it was, even the storage thing yesterday, it was a conversation of how this stuff gets developed and why it was developed. And it was basically like, this is the story of a home gym owner that's like, this is a problem. Like this, I ran into that problem. It was like I was punching holes in my wall. I was doing all sorts of shit. So it's just like an interesting look into why and how this stuff gets created, because I think a lot of people just think it's like, oh yeah, it's Elite FTS stuff. Like they have X amount of equipment. They do this, that. It's like, no, we train. Like we run into the same problems you do. And Goodwin shared that story. He was like, I downsized. I went to a different apartment, and like now I have all this shit, and I just don't want to fucking. I don't want to punch holes in the wall of my apartment. You know.
I mean, with the equipment, it's because it's the yoke bar thing I wrote yesterday. I had to come up with some stupid tagline when I wrote it out there. You can usually tell if I wrote it because I guarantee there's a typo in it somewhere. Let's say the yoke bar, because people bitch because it's texture coated or whatever.
Sure.
Powder coated. We don't build it for that. We build things that you can beat the shit out of.
Oh yeah.
Over a period of time. So that's when I'm looking at these things, and when we were talking about the blemish bars and stuff like that, as I said in that video, yes, I totally understand where they're coming from. I get both sides of that 100%. But at the end of the day, I want a bar you can beat the fucking shit out of, because that's really what the training is. So that's the first part. Can you beat the shit out of this? And how long can you beat the shit out of it? Because you shouldn't ever have to replace it.
Right.
It's kind of how I see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the product we're going to be testing tonight and this weekend is we're going to beat the shit out of it.
There's
Right?
no doubt about it.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. But again, that's the point. But again, like even with, and this can go back to business, this can go back to training, whatever you want to do. But I think even if you're going to sell a product, that product has to align with your values. Right, that product has to be an offshoot of who you are as a business, who you are as a coach, who you are as a trainer, whatever the world it may be, but it needs to align with what you do, right? And I think that's why the yoke bar is such a success in terms of a product, because you can beat the shit out of it. You can hand it down. I know coaches that have handed down yoke bars, right? Like from one person to the other. And years go by. I know somebody just messaged me the other day and said, I have like the first yoke bar, like the first generation yoke bar that you guys put out. And it's like, yeah, that's like that whole idea of live, learn, pass on. Someone buys a product, it lasts forever, and they can pass it on to somebody that's just starting out. They can pass it on to somebody that they, another coach, an assistant, or whoever it is. And it's like you have to be able to stand behind what you do in terms of service and what you sell in terms of product.
And do you use it? It's
right.
I don't want to mention the name of the bar, but there's a bar that we've been using in here for the last year and a half, or whatever it is. The pad's fucking done. It's fucking done.
Yeah.
And so we noticed it this last weekend, and it's like, well, that's fucking great.
Yeah,
the pad's fucking gone. But I've noticed that since then, they've made an iteration, and they sell a completely different pad now. That's why I don't want to mention. I don't want to downgrade the product, because I'm guessing that the reason why they changed their pad is because the first one fucking falls apart.
It's that feedback. They got that feedback.
A year and a half, so they made the correction, which is the right thing to do. I never would have fucking put the thing out. It would have been in my gym for a year and a half.
Beat the shit out of it.
Working on that thing before that. So to avoid that whole situation, because what happens then is how many pads are you going to have to go replace? Because if you're selling it as being a durable pad and those other stuff, the fucker better last
Oh yeah.
A long time, a number of years, or you should be willing to replace it because it's breaking down. Now, if you get, 500 of those things out there, it becomes more expensive to be able to replace the rush to market, if that's what it was, or than it does to actually take the time, which is hard. It's fucking hard, because you have something you want to bring to market, you're using it, you fucking love it, but it doesn't have the repetitions in it to be able to go that way.
Right.
To circle back to something else you said was, if you have a business, the values need to align if you want to be able to sell what that business is. Where I'll flip that back to the people that are listening, because most don't have a business.
Right.
What if you're selling yourself? If you're trying to sell yourself in whatever you're doing, shouldn't yourself align with what your own values are? Because if most of the time they're not, if you don't know what your values are, go back and listen to the podcast from a couple podcasts ago.
Yep.
It was definitely on that one. 1, 2, 3 ago, I believe it was 2 or 3 ago.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And how we do a deep dive into that.
Yep.
Because then you're going to be frustrated and upset all the time. So if I was trying to run a business that didn't align with those values, how well do you think the stress and the frustration and all that would be? It'd be through the fucking roof.
Absolutely.
So if you're trying to run your life in such a way that doesn't align with what your own values are, then you're trying to run your life completely opposite of how most people are going to try to run a successful business. So you can't expect it to be able to go in the right direction, even though it's easier to lie to yourself than it is to be able to lie to staff, customers, and everybody else.
Yeah, and it's that whole idea of, and I think it's the term is cognitive dissonance, is when you're acting in a way that does not align with who you are, what you believe, and there's only so much gas in the tank for those actions.
Sometimes I don't know if people know what they are and what they believe.
Right.
And especially today, in today's world, because we're being lied to by fucking everybody, everywhere, right? So the amount of lies that are coming out, just not politically and all, but in this industry, it's what Wendler had a shirt years ago that said, you're being fucking lied to. And I used to laugh about it, and holy fuck, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So if that's what's being fed in, to somebody, then what do you think's going to be coming out?
Shit in, shit out.
Unless they're able to be able to pause and have these conversations with themselves about who they are, what they actually believe, what is their influence, and question the influence, even if it's us sitting here talking. We could be,
absolutely.
you know, and if I was listening to us talking, I'd be thinking, how much bullshit are they spewing right now? Right? I mean, you should be asking that about everybody.
Right.
You know, about everything. And because that's how you're going to that's how you're going to figure out who you are, by having those conversations with that, because you're going to have to figure it out. And how do you figure out if this is bullshit or this is bullshit or that's bullshit? At some point in time internally.
Yeah, you need some sort of indicator.
Yeah, you have to have a gauge. And what is your gauge? Right? Because if you're always lying to yourself and if you're always making excuses and you're fucking lazy and you're not accountable for anything, your gauge is fucking broke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which means your outside influences are going to fucking trample all over you and you have nothing to fucking complain about because you're fucking broke because you're not looking at doing the self-assessment. I have no fucking idea how we just got here.
I fucking love it. No, but it's true. But it even comes back to everything we were talking about: sales. We were talking about business. We were talking about you know, having to have those objective measures in place and those systems in place to determine growth or to determine success. And it's like, it all starts with the whole idea of if you're on an airplane and that shit's going down, you have to put that mask on yourself first before you help the person sitting next to you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Before you can sell something, sell yourself, sell a product, sell a whatever, it's like we need to understand who we are, the direction we want to go into, and what we believe, what we perceive as truth, what we perceive as our priorities in life. Therefore, we can make a clear and concise decision based on those morals, those directions. This is like having a compass. It's like just the true north.
But understanding that your compass, my compass, I'm just speaking for myself, it's broken. We're all broken. I mean, as humans, we are all fucking broken. Some way. We are all broken.
Yep.
So when you're looking at that internal compass for that temperature or whatever you want to try to be able to gauge, you can't think that you're perfect.
Oh, fuck no.
Right?
No, or that you're not going to change over time.
Well, I think that's why a lot of people don't want to start having that inner dialogue with themselves, because they're going to look back and say, well, I used to be an addict. I used to do this. I used to do this. I really don't know. And no, we're all fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
We're all fucked up. We all have a history. We're all broken. That doesn't mean that your common sense or your gauge is broken.
Right.
Right? Nobody can take that away from you. Now, when you go back to what I was talking about before, you're conviction driven and you're in a constant state of overlearning, yeah, your bullshit detector is going to get a little bit better. But this is where I have that little inner conflict with myself. Did it really get better, or did it just become smarter at what I already knew was fucked up from the beginning? Right? Because there's that little twinge, that's fucked up, but then you don't know why. Right. And then when you go to start to do a deep dive, there's bias. You want to try to support how you really think, but not take the time to look at, the opposite of what you really think to be able to see that way. And I think that's what grows over a period of time. But it doesn't matter going down either, because you should go down both those roads, supporting your bias and against that. But you knew something was not right.
Yeah. Right.
You see, that's what I'm saying is, I think, for the most part, we all know something's just not right.
Yeah, it doesn't sit well.
But then it takes a little bit of time, experience, education, and so forth to be able to know when you start going down those paths, which one is, what do they call that? Cognitive bias? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And what's the other one where there's dissonance and bias? So you got to understand but that comes after you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if with that further education becomes a bigger flame of letting you know what's fucked up. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny, everything can go back to training, is like, if you do not start the process of having those conversations with yourself. Like, I'm not saying just sit in a park bench and just talk to yourself in front of the birds, right? Like, if you want to do that, fuck it. It's your life. Do what you want to do. But start to kind of ask yourself questions. Like, it happened to me yesterday. I was like, I really, because I went for like a 3-mile ruck yesterday. What do you got? What is it? Oh no.
My fucking watch just said. So fucking explain to me.
What the fuck?
I'm done with this fucking technology shit. For some fucking reason, Siri on my watch just gave me a fucking search result for here's what I found about birds. Fucking birds.
Even when they're not up here, they're fucking with us. I think the CIA got that one wrong.
Birds. Okay, anyhow, back to what you were saying.
Back to what you were saying is if people aren't giving themselves the time to have those conversations, that internal monologue, or just kind of check in with yourself. I mean, this is not the first time we've mentioned this on the podcast. Like, this is a recurring theme because it's important. Touching base with yourself in terms of like the direction you're going and your actions and what you're doing. Like I said, it happened to me yesterday. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for. I had like a weighted backpack. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for like a little ruck. Cool. And then I was like, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And I was like, nope, I'm being a lazy piece of shit. I'm just going to grab that fucking bag and just stop overthinking things. And I just went. But it could easily, if I hadn't, I've done that so many times in my life where I'm just like, like 5 reps is good. I should have done 8. Like, but you know what I mean? It's like those little shortcuts, but they start to add up. And then it puts you in a position where you're like, I don't know where the fuck I am. Like, this is not who I am or what I do or what I want to do. And everything feels fucked up.
It compounds itself. That's the lack of the consistency, what I talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, wow. Okay. We have been, I think we'll pivot here. And we've been going for a while. So we'll hit these super chats because we got a good chunk of super chats that came in while we were talking. And what we'll do is we'll just keep going down this list. First one from Dilly4. Signed up for my first meet. It's in February and hosted by USA Powerlifting, entering at 265 plus division because cutting weight is bullshit. Any advice or tips on our first meet? Yeah, don't bomb out. There you go.
I mean, if you stick by that goal, it's a learning experience. So when I talk to lifters about their first meet, it's like remove all the things that could potentially be, all the things that you can control. Like, he doesn't want to lose weight. That's a good thing. It's your first meet. No reason to cut meat for a first meet. I don't care what anybody says. There's no reason for that.
Right.
Go into it because it's your first meet. So you're going to be exposed to a lot of things that you haven't been exposed to before. When to warm up. So you're going to have to follow. So you're going to figure out when to warm up, how many, the attempts, the platform, the stands on the platform might be different than the stands of the warm. I can give hundreds of things,
Absolutely.
That could go one way or another. But the advice I have is just control all the controllables that you can and observe. Observe the shit out of everything, because most lifters today, and I think I'm fair on this assumption, are training by themselves. So they don't get to see how lifters of different levels approach a barbell.
Right.
They don't see how lifters chalk their backs, chalk their hands, set up, how what do they take with them to the fucking meet? What do they put in the bag? How soon do they start warming up? What do they do between attempts? All these little things you want to observe and absorb and be able to take in, because it's your first meet. So as you do more and more meets, you're going to be less able to do those things.
Yep.
Now, if you're so self-absorbed that you're not taking in and looking at what everybody else is doing, you're greatly restricting your experience base and education base, because it's not about this meet.
No.
Right?
No.
So if you can absorb, let's say you lowered your expectations on all the lifts by 10%. You lower those expectations, will allow you to absorb the environment even more so. Then you end up gaining the experience of somebody that is trying to get those PRs, self-absorbed. It's going to take them 5 meets, 6 meets to gain the same experience you're going to be able to get by just taking things in.
Yep.
So then lifter A, self-absorbed, trying to break PRs all the time, after 5 meets is at level B, C. This one, who, hey, it's the first meet, going to lower expectations. I'm going to take in, I'm going to watch everybody like a hawk, man. I'm going to make notes. I'm going to just fucking absorb everything.
Yep.
This is what people do when they miss. This is what people do when they make weights. This is what they did beforehand. This is what they didn't do. So you're just studying the shit. And you're able to do it from two sides, from the platform and the warm-up room. You take that all in. Now 5 meets later, this lifter is at level B. You're at fucking D, E, F, G.
Right.
You're way fucking further ahead because they're still like, what the fuck? I don't understand why I keep missing this shit. You know, and you're like, well, you're missing it because when I was in this first meet, 70% of everybody that missed weights did the same dumbass shit you're still doing.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because I'm going to be going into that situation in December with my first multiply powerlifting meet, and I was talking to Adam about it, and I'm like, I don't have expectation. I was like, you're picking my numbers. Like, I don't give a shit what's on the bar. I really don't care because I'm trying to, like you had said, kind of absorb all the information that I can about the situation. Like, what does it do? Like, it's going to be a learning experience for me, and like whatever numbers I hit.
Yeah.
Like I have ideas, but at the same time, it's like, fuck it, like it probably won't be the last. Like, you know what I mean? Like the idea is you get better and better, and if you can have better conversations with people and you can learn as much as you can, like that's the name of the game. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with that one. Next one, Kevin Fowler, fucking jackass comment. Times are tough. The boys are out here pushing metrosexual flannels. Here's something to help you get back on your feet. Just kidding. Love the content as always.
cut the sleeves off so you feel that.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with metrosexual?
Fucking Kevin Fowler. Next one is from JBet. It says message retracted. So I don't know what that said, but I hope it was a good one. Thank you very much for that. Johnson Benjamin, getting the flannel now. I wanted a limited edition heavy duty zip hoodie. Some primo gasp quality type stuff with some cool screen printing and Elite FTS branding. Can send the money right away or bring back the hoodie Sam has on.
Yeah, we have a hoodie coming in December, but it's not like what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It is a zip hoodie, but it's not what that is. We need to sell more shit before we start getting into stuff like that, because that's going to be more custom.
Yeah.
Well, you got to order way more to be able to do that, something like that, but hopefully we'll get there.
Absolutely. Johnny Holder says, I always run out of gas when deadlift by my 5th or 6th set. I don't have this problem with squats. Is this a grip GPP issue? Example 5x5 at 365 plus 20 pounds max each set. So he's just running out of gas on the deadlift when he's training it.
I don't know, because I don't know. I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here and say that it's a strength endurance issue, that putting in some walking, and so yes, GPP, but more so than like sled dragging. I'm talking more walking, just basic low end endurance work, 10 to 20 minutes a few times a week.
Yep.
Because what I'm thinking here is he's bending over, right? So the squat, when you're squatting down, typically your torso is going to be at a little bit better angle. It's a little bit easier to be able to breathe. When most people go down to grab a deadlift, they may wedge and start with a good position, but as they're going down, it's kind of like dropping down to do, if you're a power lifter, right? So it's like dropping down to do squat thrust.
Yeah.
You're bending way over, which is basically forcing all the air out of you. You need to be able to pull back in, which sounds like that shouldn't be a problem. It probably isn't a problem for most people, but you start to get a little bit heavier. The torso gets a little bit heavier, just to be able to just, people bitch and complain because they got to bend over, put their shoes and shit like that on. Yep. A lot of that isn't so much, well, it is the mobility, but it's also because when you bend down in there, you're putting yourself in a position where you really can't breathe that well.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to say there's an oxygen debt. And I'm really reaching here because I've been a super heavyweight. I've been heavy. I see what's going on with this. But when you're doing that for 5 sets of 5, right, and you're up and down, it's almost like you're doing squat thrust. They're like I call the dumbbell rows bodybuilding burpees.
Right.
Deadlifts are like, squat thrusts for a power lift.
Right.
For a bigger one, especially if they're conventional, because the quads are pushing into the abdominal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be the first place I go. Now, if they're leaner, then I don't know. But I would probably still guess there, but it could be technique on how they're getting started as well.
Yeah, I think a good test for that is if you bend over and tie your shoes, are you out of breath on the way up?
Yeah.
It's like, if yes, then I would increase.
And I mean, that used to be something I used to like laugh and like brag about, but it's also a sign though too. I'm not saying that if you're heavier, that's not going to always be a problem, right? It will be a problem, but you need to understand that you have to balance that problem if you're going to be, especially if you're going to train your deadlift with that type of volume.
Yeah,
5 fives. I mean, you're not doing 8 singles. So, I mean, there's different ways to go about this correction.
Yeah.
You can quit doing the 5s and start doing more singles, but to match that volume, you're looking at 25 singles. So that's a hell of a long time. Or you can bring it down, or you can increase, the conditioning, which typically isn't going to be a bad thing.
Yeah, right. Most people, it doesn't have any detrimental effect on their strength because they're usually starting in such a shitty place.
No, it doesn't. The only time that really becomes a problem is somebody's really trying to push into your heavier weight class, and I'm making excuses for these people right now, by the way. And the calorie deficit they're going to put themselves in with 3 10-minute walks, which you see where I'm going here, is I'm stopping because I'm giving them ammunition that doesn't even work for somebody that's fucking halfway intelligent.
Perfect. Next one, George. Hey, Dave, what did you learn from watching Louie's comeback? Also, how's your body feeling at the moment? Shoulders, hips, etc.
That was part of his comeback, so I don't.
Yeah, because he mentioned that in a video the other day.
Yeah, because when I first got there, he had quote unquote retired, but the reason I say that is to use Louie's words, and I kind of feel the same way. Like, retired from what? I mean, it's not like this is a job that you're making tons of fucking money from. Like, you didn't you quit,
right?
I mean, like, retirement. So I don't say I retired from powerlifting. I mean, my shoulder put me out. It's
right,
whatever.
Yeah.
So, but he quote unquote retired. So he never thought he was going to do a meet again. And that was when I first got there. Then within 6 months or so, Kenny Patterson said something a little bit shitty to him, and it fired Louie up. So he started coming back. So I can't really say what I learned from him making that comeback. What I can say more so that made a bigger imprint was how it changed everybody in the gym. Because even before he started to actually get strong, it was like, fuck, man, this old man at the time is younger than me now, right? This old man's he's doing pretty good.
He's bringing it.
And this is when the weights weren't that big. It was like, holy fuck, he's doing pretty good. This is kind of cool. Then it got to be like, whoa. This fucker's where I'm at right now. So then in my mind, it was no longer about, wow, that's cool. Look at what this guy's doing. It came back to, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, how can I let this fucker even get close to me? What the fuck am I not doing? And I think everybody else in there, if they admit it or not, had the same attitude. And it's like, okay, we have to figure out how to up our fucking game, because there's no reason why this crippled old fucker should even be in our fucking neighborhood.
Right.
But not only is he in our neighborhood, he's on the house down the street. I mean, he's like a fucking head of us. Like, this is fucking wrong.
Yeah.
So that was one aspect that I learned from that was, that's so much of it, that if I'm trying to look at what he did, because now that I'm kind of in that same age range, I'm like, how the fuck, how the fuck? And I'm more beat up now at my age than what he is at his, but he was still fucking beat up. And it's like, well, how in the fuck, did he, I don't know. So, but there's a lot of things. I mean, that's all he was really focused on.
Yeah, right.
And so were we. So I don't know how to answer that, because I'm still mad at the fact that I let him fucking, get close. But I'm happy we're all happy for him. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the biggest impact I saw with that whole thing was it just pushed the fuck out of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of left this impression that if I'm ever working with people, or if I'm ever in the same gym with people, maybe I can't do the bar lift or whatever. I still have to strain. I still have to push because I saw what that did.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, this makes no sense. You know, and back then I had some injuries, but nothing that was an excuse to be able to let that happen.
Yeah, right.
It's like, holy shit.
All right. Next one, W.M. Muller. I just said, just glad to finally catch one live and listen. Awesome. Thank you for that. Alejandro Sanchez says, love your content and can't wait to try the knee sleeves. Just bought some knee sleeves. Cool. Would Westside dominate raw lifting if they truly cared? That's the first question.
That's a tough one to answer, but not for the reasons that people think. I don't know what the culture is in there now.
You're right.
I haven't been there for a long time, so I don't know. What I would say is if you go back to the culture I was a part of, and that wasn't me, right? That was Louie, that's Chuck, there's a lot of other people. It was all of us. But the drivers of that, most definitely, were Louie, Chuck, I mean, there's Kenny, I mean, the people that have been there for a long time. And obviously I'm going to have bias. If raw was, if gear didn't exist, then we still would have dominated at the same level. And to me, there's no doubt in my mind, just because of the atmosphere and the competitive aspect and the drive of the people that were in there. It was very, very rare. I would go as far as to say I never saw somebody come in there in the 14 years that had more drive than the lowest person on our crew.
Sure.
Not one. And there's people that came in that had a lot of drive. There's no doubt about it. But consistently for the same number of years as the person on the lowest totem pole on our, on our crew, not fucking one.
Oh, absolutely.
So that is what makes me think that. So that's not based upon the training style, right? Because I would tend to agree almost that you could have changed the training style and we still would have had the lifters that we had. Almost.
Yep.
I mean, there's a part of me that does agree with that, but there's a big part of me that says no, it probably would have been 10, 15, 20% lower. But I can engage in that conversation.
Yep.
It's not completely off of the table. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I would.
So second half of that question, and I already know the answer to this. Who was scarier, Matt Dimmel or Chuck V?
I mean, to me, really none of them,
right.
Because I trusted them. But if one of them was to, well, I'm going to say Matt, right? Because Chuck is a figment of a lot of people's imagination.
Sure.
He's very fucking composed. Very fucking composed. The only time I'd see him where he wasn't really that composed was if he's fucking drunk. Then he wasn't that composed. But then it was like funny, type of thing. Matt was somebody that just on a flip of a coin would be out of his fucking mind.
Yeah.
Now, I found it humorous, when he'd be out of his mind because I never was worried about it.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, I didn't want him out of his fucking mind coming to me.
Yeah, no.
Because that would have been a bad fucking outcome.
Yeah.
So that's how I would answer that one there, because it would depend upon which one of them had the least composure. Right? And Chuck was one of the most composed people I've ever met in my life.
All right, next one is from Paul. No question. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. That's awesome. Alex was commenting when he left us a nice super chat. He was commenting when he was talking about the culture, and he says, "Don't at me with that stuff." Thank you, Alex, for that. Our friend Alex Kania there. Next one, Randy. No question. Just want to send some support and thanks for the content. I think Elitefts has a cool online community thing going. Thanks again. So thank you, Randy, for that. Next one, no question again. Beater car. Take my money, Dave. Thank you. This is the most non-questions we've had. This is easy. Here we go. Next question from CW. Hey, Dave, thanks for all you do. Any chance of a Tate's Giving November shirt to help support you?
Well, we have the November flannel. Like we
Yeah,
have that,
you're
right?
wearing
So
it,
we
yep.
got the flannel. We have hoodies, the FU. So we have FU
Yep.
hoodies, T-shirts, mugs, and there's something else with that. Hoodies, T-shirts, mugs, a hat. So
Awesome.
there's going to be that
We
stuff.
got some stuff coming. Rob the trainer says, you guys are amazing. Thank you for all the episodes. I look forward to the podcast and live videos every week. Thank you for that. Let's see. John B says, I need an Elite FTS shoulder saver pad like a fat kid loves cake. Supply chain issues are real. Next one. Dr. King Schultz, thoughts on Matt Wenning's public statement that Dave Tate trained like an idiot, has no clue about conjugate, and therefore is injured and fucked up. Didn't preface that one. Yeah. No thoughts there.
I got no thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, people can think whatever they want about me. I don't control how other
right.
people think.
Right.
So is what it is. It doesn't make any difference to me.
Right. Next one, Basement Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. Dave, quick breakdown of Iron Cowboy versus Elite FTS Power Bar. Inquiring minds who are more interested in equipment than actually training want to know.
Knurling. The knurling's more aggressive.
Yep.
It's the biggest thing.
Any differences in like dimensions?
No.
It should be pretty much the same.
No, the only thing that they should be concerned about is the knurling is super aggressive on the Elite FTS Power Bar. Outside of that, it's basically the same thing.
Awesome. And actually, that is all the super chats that we have. I don't know if we want to give them a second or two. Guys, if you have a question, drop a super chat in there and we'll answer it. It's funny that we can kind of touch on the Iron Cowboy bar a bit. That's been selling like crazy with those blemished ones.
No, the blemished ones.
It's great. Right, exactly.
I'm about ready. I mean, we were about ready to rebrand the name because the sales of that compared to what other power bars that we've sold were not where they should be, not even close.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could think of with that is the name has to suck because the specs and everything associated with it should be selling better than what it is. So the blemished ones sell. So as long as we
keep hitting them with hammers.
keep fucking them up, but it doesn't. You don't make any money on blemished shit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But and also, I mean, I'm gonna make a video on this, and while we wait a second here, I want to touch on like the multi-bar. You've used multi-bars in training and whatnot, and we kind of had a conversation about this a little bit in terms of the use of the multi-bar. And again, I'm gonna do a video on it, so we don't want to go super crazy with it here, but. Do you think that is a good viable bar for people that have garage gyms, like small gyms? It's like an everyday training bar, right?
I think so, but my honest opinion is I've never liked it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have no use for it. You know, I have powerlifting background. I want the power bar.
Sure.
And I didn't even know they existed until Jeremy Frey brought it up. I don't know how long ago, many, many years ago. Yeah. When he was still working at, I can't remember what school he was at the time. But what he wanted a multi-bar. I'm like, what the fuck you want that? I don't understand what you want that for. Yeah. He was like, Dave, look, we do some of the Olympic lifts and we do some of the power lifts. I need both of the rings. And so he's explaining what the reason was for. And I'm like, well, fuck, that makes sense. You know, I'm a guy that doesn't do any of the fucking Olympic lifts. Never had a desire to. Don't know how to do them. Don't know how to coach them. I have no purpose, for those. So, I still was like, are you sure? Like, you just can't have them like. Well, then he's explaining, I don't want the center knurling because of some of those other lifts that he was doing. And when he laid it all out to me, then he was like, yeah, I understand that because he wanted like one or two power bars, and that was it. Everything else being the multi-bars. And that was kind of my wake-up call. Like, okay, these actually probably have a bigger purpose in training than, I cringe to say, than a power bar. But they do. Yeah. So I don't use it a lot. Sure. But there is a huge use for it. So I think my hesitancy, and on that being a part of, this company
Yeah.
may have stifled that, where the multi-bar that we have is on par with everybody else's multi-bar easily, if not better than most. It's, I'd say, top 10% of all the multi-bars out there.
Yeah.
But we're not really doing a really good job of saying, hey, look, here's our multi-bar.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of why I bring it up just a little bit, because it is a viable option. Like working in a health and wellness center, I worked in very commercial gyms, and it's like the bars that most people have at these places are shit. Total dog shit. So it's like, why don't we get something that does the job of, you can use it for a lot of different things. A lot of people won't get all bloodied up with the multi-bar. And it can be like, I call it the everyday training bar. It's like, there are some days where you want a little bit more knurling. You want that aggressive knurling on some heavy deadlifts. But like, if you're doing reps on shit, it's like, give your hands a break.
Well, the other fact of the matter, and this is somebody that loves to squat, is how many exercises you need center knurling for?
Yeah, right. Right.
Just the one most important exercise ever created, in my opinion. But
absolutely. But I think that was, we got one more that just came in. Brandon says, it's almost the Marine Corps' birthday, Dave. Give a shout out to the Marines for me.
I'll give a shout out to anybody that served. Anybody. Our vets, anybody that's serving now, first responders, all of them always have my respect.
Awesome. Cool. So that's all that's come in. I don't know if you want to, we can I want you guys that are listening to this and listen to this on YouTube to understand we do more podcast episodes than what you guys see. Absolutely.
So if you subscribe, is that right? Follow our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, all of them.
Nailed it.
Or go to our website, hit the Table Talk banner at the bottom of the page. It will take you there. If all you've been doing is following the podcast that you're seeing here on YouTube, you've already missed probably 10 or 15 podcasts since we've brought this back.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think also, Jacob, I don't know if we did this on this episode. We can change the chat on the live stream to subscribers only. So I don't know if, Jacob, did we do that on this one?
I think we did, yeah.
We did.
Oh, for the super chat?
So so I think people can still super chat in, but in terms of just regular conversations, they need to be a subscriber to actually communicate.
Okay.
Which is kind of an interesting thing. It obviously didn't change anything. Like, we're getting blown up on here, but I do think it'll be interesting. That's like the easiest fee possible. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's one of the things that's so simple to do, and it provides so much support for us, because it's kind of the name of the game. We're trying to just get the message out there and help as many people as possible. So I also buy the flannel. Make sure. And what we'll do is we'll put that, Jacob, if you want to put that link in there for everybody so they can check it out if they haven't checked it out already. Very limited supply and once they're gone, and that's how that works. That's it. Awesome. So thank you guys for checking out this episode, and from myself, from Dave, thank you very much, and we will see you guys in the next one.
We'll see you.